people say, well, who are we to decide what should or shouldn't be in a particular stream? And probably they're right. Who are we to decide that?
Most beautiful, spectacular, revered areas in the entire country, and certainly in the National Wilderness System. They're places that most people would believe are untouched by humans, where we aren't in there manipulating and changing, that these are places where we let nature rule. Rotenone is a pesticide that's commonly used by fish and game departments when they want to poison all the fish that live in a river, a lake, or stream.
Is Rotenone dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous.
They've used them in some of our wilderness areas in the United States, in our national parks. They're used in some of our nation's most protected and most pristine areas.
We are restoring native species. That involves removing the non-natives that we decades ago put here. The guys that were in my job years ago put them here. And now some of us are coming along and removing some of them to put back what was here prior to those intentional introductions.
They make a lot of assurances about all the safeguards that are put in place to make sure that, non-target species aren't harmed or that they'll survive. And, in this case, they assured everybody that the frogs would be okay, for example, and the amphibians would be okay because it would be applied at a time when they weren't vulnerable to it, that the dosages would be low.
Rotenone is a derivative of plants primarily from South America. It's extracted from the roots and then mixed with some other compounds that help it mix into the water. It interferes with the energy production at the cellular level in the fish's body and makes that cell not produce energy, so the cell shuts down and eventually the fish will die. In order to test whether a chemical is still present in a stream at a lethal concentration, we typically use fish to do that. And the way to do that is to, once a body of water has been treated, is to put several fish in a cage or a bag and put them in that water and see if they live. And if they live, for the rule of thumb is for 4 hours or longer, then that chemical has dissipated or degraded enough that you can go ahead and restock that body of water with whatever fish species you're concerned about.
The opportunity to go fishing is an American heritage which we must safeguard, for certainly no more natural or wholesome recreation can be found.
This is highly toxic stuff. The people who apply it are dressed in protective gear. The people who produce it are dressed in protective gear. And it just gets released out into the environment. These poisons that they use to kill fish don't just kill fish. It's a way of essentially clear-cutting the aquatic biota. It wipes them out. Then the agencies come back and plant something else that they want in there, usually another fish species.
In a lake, if it's treated in the fall and then ice is over and the water stays cold, rotenone may persist at a lethal level for aquatic organisms for months.
A lot of the species that are killed by the rotenone don't come back. In addition to killing whatever fish are in the water, it kills amphibians, it kills macroinvertebrates, it kills zooplankton, it kills a lot of other things that live in the water, many, many, many other species.
Some rotenone projects have to be repeated every 10 years or so. You're just not going to get all the fish the first year. There may be eggs in the gravel, and the chemical may not carry through the gravel into those eggs, and it may not be effective on eggs. So you have to come back at least the second year to try to get those fish. We've had to go back a third year because we might have missed a small spring off the side of the stream somewhere that held adult fish that spawned. Where we may see an impact is on species that rely fairly heavily on aquatic organisms for food. Mammals like mink or some birds that are fish-eating birds may see a diminishment of their food resources.
The project does pose a risk to bull trout, which are on the endangered species list, because they live downstream in the rivers, and if something goes wrong in neutralizing the streams, then the bull trout downstream are at risk. From an ecological standpoint, there's really very little here that makes any sense at all. They're going to kill not only the fish that they initially planted, but they're going to kill all the other native life forms that exist in that lake. It's just crazy.
We're not worried about all the organisms. We're only worried about one organism. In this case, up in Montana, it's trout. But trout only form part of the total system. And we can't operate and manage a stream system for one species. It's a total ecosystem, because if the ecosystem disappears, no trout are ever going to be.
It's all about maintaining a recreational fishery and having that recreational fishery filled with the species that the state wants to have in there. They really help to, unfortunately, continue a paradigm of management that has been rejected by ecologists for probably decades now. We need to be willing to let evolution work, rather than constantly manipulating and trying to change things, because most of the time we just screw things up when we do that.
Nature has always been the controller, always the one to decide which organism appears, which organism survives, which organism must become part of history. Man, on the other hand, thinks that he can do whatever he wants. And he can make the judgment that this organism should be or should not be or should be replaced by something else. Is that not arrogance? Arrogance at its zenith.
Well, I'll go get one more load.
Roger that. Let's see you in a bit.